Hello and welcome to The Rest is Football with me, Gary Lineker, Alan Shearer and Micah Richards. We've had a bumper midweek of FA Cup action to enjoy and we've been up and down the country following it. All three of us were at the Alan Shearer derby on Tuesday evening, which we'll be talking about later in the show. Last night, Alan and I were at the City Ground with Wayne Rooney to enjoy a cracker between Nottingham Forest and Manchester United. And all our teams have gone through. Mike has got lots of teams, not all of his teams, but certainly Manchester City, Newcastle went through, Leicester went through, which is producer Harry's team, and producer John's team, Wolves, they're through as well. So we've got 4 of the last 8. But Alan, what a draw. What a draw for Newcastle. Dearie me.
You know what it is? I never normally swear, do I? But what the fuck's going on with the draw? With Newcastle this year. Have you seen the draws Newcastle have had? I've got it in front of me. Champions League draw, AC Milan home and away, Paris Saint-Germain home and away, Borussia Dortmund home and away, cup draws, Man City at home, Man United away, Chelsea away, Sunderland away, Fulham away, Blackburn away, and now Manchester fucking City away.
You know the Champions League works home and away, you know that.
That's why I said home and away, but we could have had an easier group.
Yeah.
Come on. Talk about doing it the hard way.
You were saying the Toon, we're in the Champions League. We don't care who we get. We just want the great nights. That's what you were saying.
Yeah, but what a draw for us three, really. There you've got, Manchester City and Newcastle will be there, I'm sure. We currently share the FA Cup with ITV. And it kind of rotates the picks between each round. So in the round that's just gone, I think we had the first pick. It's now ITV's turn for first pick. We get picks 2 and 3. I absolutely assume that ITV will go with Manchester United, Liverpool. I think take that as a given. I think the next 2 ties, forgive us, John, but Wolves might be left to the end here, and I think we'll go with Manchester City against Newcastle and Chelsea against Leicester, a repeat of the 2021 final, of course. But let's talk about the games. We'll start with the match we were at last night. Alan, I think you've been getting a bit of love bizarrely from Manchester United fans, even though you were quite critical of one or two of their players' performances.
I never normally get any love from Man United fans, especially on social media. I'm not one for looking at social media when you've been a pundit or particularly been a co-commentator after a game. But because we got stuck in the ground for about half an hour after the game last night, I thought, I'll just sit in the back of the car and have a little scroll through. And bizarrely, it was like, I agree with Shearer, what he said, how we played, how about Rashford and Anthony and Garnacho and Bruno and everything else. So I was amazed, yeah.
You know, obviously, being a pundit, being in the studio, you don't get that much time. A co-com, you know, throughout the game. So you've got to be on it for 90 minutes plus.
Yeah.
Do you get more nervous for co-coms than a studio? Do you have to do more planning?
He's got a face for co-coms though, Micah.
See, I don't get nervous. I think the buzz is probably a little bit more and better for the co-coms because there's definitely more pressure on co-coms because you've got to tell it how it is instantly. You know, you've got to look at so many other different parts of the game. It's always flowing and moving. You've got to call a decision as you see. You've got like 3 or 4 seconds to make up your mind. Whereas you're in the studio as a pundit, you know, and you've got a few minutes and certainly a lot longer to make your mind up on a decision, etc. And you'll see several more angles in the studio before you come back to your half-time or full-time. So it's more difficult being a co-com than it is being a pundit. But I really enjoy it, you know, because you're looking at the game, you're up top, you're looking right down onto it, and you can see different formations, where he's gone and what have you. So yeah, I really enjoy that side of it. I enjoy both.
I have to say, I really hate to do this. This I find this quite painful, but you're actually quite bloody good at the co-coms because it is.
Thank you.
I know. It's yeah.
I was going to say the same thing as well, guys. It annoyed me.
God, it's quite nauseating, isn't it? Really, it's quite nauseating.
Oh, lads, come! But I hope we're recording this. I'm keeping this forever.
It is a difficult gig, though. But I thought you get it right. You've got the passion, which is always important when you're there, but also the knowledge and not over talking, which I think is a kind of issue with a lot of co-commentators. It's like incessant, and that's become more of a thing in the modern game. You go back, well, there never used to be co-commentators when I played, but commentary in general now, there's a lot more talking over the game than there used to be. I'm a bit old school on that one, but yeah, well done, Al. Begrudging praise.
It, lads, thanks. I'm loving your love this morning.
So what did we make? I mean, Forest had one or two half chances. There weren't many chances in the whole game, really, were they? It started well. It was quite exciting. Good atmosphere as always at the City Ground.
Man United had 2 or 3 really good chances in the first 10 or 15 minutes. McTominay had a couple. Anthony hit the bar with a really well worked corner. And then Forest had a couple of chances as well, but I mean, particularly second half, I thought the game was really slow, and two teams who were struggling in forward positions. Wasn't a great game in the end, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter in cup football at all. The pressure was on Man United to get through to the quarterfinals. And they did exactly that, and that's all that matters, isn't it? You can analyse his performance as much as you want. They just had to get through to the quarterfinals, and they did.
Erik ten Hag at the end of the game was asked the question about trying to find more consistency, and he was saying, "Well, we have been consistent, and it's certainly since the turn of the year." He said, apart from the Fulham game the previous week, I'm not convinced though, Micah, with United. Are you? I mean, it's not free flowing. I mean, they've ground out the results by and large, but I can see a bad spell coming as well. I mean, they have had injury problems and issues, but then most teams have.
Yeah, I'd agree with you on that, guys. I think analysing Man United and sort of scrutinising them all the time because of the size of them, sometimes it's a little bit of an overreaction. They was in good form, but even when they was winning those games, it wasn't like, oh my God, they look amazing. This is a style of play. This is how they're playing. Like, all the strikers are on absolute fire. Højlund was in good form, but as soon as he come out the team, the whole dynamic of the team changes. And that's when you look at a team. So take Liverpool, for example. No matter who they have in a team, even if it's the young pups that they've put in, and we'll get onto that a little bit later, it's like they've been conditioned in a way to play. Yes, of course, it helps when things are going well. Of course it does. But they know the roles within the team. So if Liverpool are going to press, the young kids are going to run around. With Man United, it only takes 1 or 2 players to come out of the team, and it just falls apart. That's the bit which I can't quite grasp with Man United at this moment. They've got the derby at the weekend. Man City are in great form. And one thing I would like to add as well, you asked me the question about Ten Hag. I respect journalists, good and bad. When I've played well, they'll give me my credit. When I've not played so well, they've been honest and said I need to do better. But I don't like the fact when they're going to press conferences and they're basically saying, Micah Richards said X, Y, Z. Carragher said, basically, this is what happened. If you're a journalist and you're going to ask a question, surely be big enough and have the credit, believe in your ability and have the credibility to ask the questions that you really want to ask, rather than having the cop-out and saying, Gary Neville said X, Y, Z. No. Currently, I just don't like that. And then, like, he did an example. There was it was on Sky, and we was talking about, I think Gary Neville used the word complacent. So someone said, somewhere down the line, Gary Neville said to Man City have been complacent today. And he wasn't saying it that wasn't in the context. He said maybe they've been a little bit complacent. Then he runs with that. Next minute, you've got Pep We talked about it on the pod, basically saying, oh, well, Gary Neville's not won 4 in a row. Jamie's never won it, and Micah's only won 1. But that was not the context. So if you're going to ask the questions, believe in your ability, you know?
That's been an irritant of mine for a long time, Micah. I've had that happen to me so many times, where you might tweet something, or it might be on TV when you're giving an opinion, and suddenly there's a journalist going, oh, Lineker said this or Shearer said that about your... exactly as you say, completely out of context. Have the courage of your convictions, and most journalists do. Let's say most journalists do have that, but there are the exceptions, and they use it. And I've always taken umbrage with that. I think it's unless you put it in everything in the proper context, which they would never do in a press conference at the end of the game. It's completely unfair to do that.
Yeah, but you know why they're doing it? Today is clickbait.
Of course,
He said this, but you know what? I mean, you get frustrated because the journalists ask that. I get frustrated because the managers answer that.
Yeah.
Honestly, I cannot for the life of me. I don't know why Ten Hag this week or Pochettino or this week was asked about Gary Neville's comment. Ten Hag was asked about Jim. I don't know why the manager doesn't say, I don't give a fuck what he says. Why are you asking me a question about that? I don't care what they say.
That would be clickbait if they said, I don't give a fuck what Alan Shearer says.
They've got their opinion, which is fine. Everyone's entitled to their opinion, like you are, I am, Gary is, Jamie is, whoever. Why should he have to answer a question about what they said? I would just say, fine, I haven't listened to what they've said. I don't really care what they said. Ask me another question.
The other thing about managers as well is I've found over the years is that even the really successful ones, we'll eulogise about them week in, week out. We'll say how great they are, how they're planning, what amazing managers. And then you might have an off day and you have one negative comment, and that is the one thing that a manager will remember. And then you'll think to yourself, God, why is he having a go at us when we're always so kind to them? And then
exactly,
but that's kind of, it's a little bit like when you see people having a pop at you on, you might have, talking about Alan's co-commentary, for example, you might have had 2,000 people saying how great he was, and one person saying you're shit, and that's the one that actually hurts you, and it makes you hurts your feelings a little bit, But there we go. So Man U have crept through into the next round. The performance, Marcus Rashford's becoming a bit of an enigma, isn't he? I'm not sure centre forward is a 9 role, I should say, is probably right for him. But he is enigmatic, isn't he? I mean, last season he was amazing. The season before that he struggled. Now he's struggling again this season. What do you think we can put that down to? Is he a confidence player, do you think?
Well, I mean, yeah, he's definitely a confidence player, and you can clearly see he's not comfortable or doesn't really want to play centre forward, which, okay, that's fine. He wants to come off the left-hand side, but they haven't got a centre forward at the minute, so he's having to play there. I just got frustrated a few times with him last night because of his body language, with his arms thrown in the air and trying to blame other people and everyone else. And I mean, he's no youngster anymore, so he's the one that needs to be and has to be setting the example in terms of pressing and closing down, because the season that he had last season was just phenomenal. And everyone will look at him now and say, well, everyone's going to gauge you by that now, aren't they? They're going to look at that. That's what you've done. That's what you can do. But then you get back to this season, 6 goals I think he's got, and he's been nowhere near it this season. And whether there's something going on in his private life we don't know about, or whether he's not happy or uncomfortable, it just looks a very frustrated footballer at this moment in time, and that's what sort of, I don't know, it got to me last night. He wasn't the only one, so I'm not.
It's a shame, really, when you look, because he's so gifted and so talented and so quick.
Mind you, you know what? I would in that team, and I said it last night on the core-comms, I'd get bloody frustrated in that team as well, playing with Anthony on the right side, keep on forever coming in on his left, Garnacho on the left, keep on forever coming in on his right side. I would get frustrated at times as well.
One trick Tony.
Cool.
Let's move on. We had. Which game did you watched United last night, Micah?
I was looking at Liverpool game as well. Just as I flicked over, I seen, well, I don't know if you want to go into it, but I seen the first Dan's goal. Was it the little dink, I believe? The little dink, just as it turned over.
Yeah. We'll come to that in a second, but I just it's because when you're in the studio with someone, obviously Wayne Rooney's not done that much punditry, but I mean he's Wayne Rooney, he's brilliant. He's a lovely lad, you know. I mean, whatever you think, and I thought his punditry was really insightful, and he was honest about his managerial issues and his future and his plans and his ambitions. I enjoyed having him alongside. He's a top lad. He really is.
Can you as a presenter, Gaz, can you feel when someone's nervous? So say like someone's doing it for the first time, or was he nice and relaxed? Or
I thought he was pretty relaxed.
Because sometimes people's stature, they're just like, I'm Wayne Rooney, I'm going to turn up, say my stuff.
He's not that
home.
Sort of person, though, Micah. He's not got a massive ego, Wayne Rooney.
Exactly.
He's just like one of the lads. He's down to earth. He's kind of unaffected, I think, by his. I mean, let's face it, unbelievable career. I mean, what a footballer he is. But he's the most unaffected person in many ways, and I thought he seemed pretty relaxed. He was brilliant. I thought he was honest about his managerial career. I thought it was quite interesting that I did a bit of research, and the fact that he's actually never paid a penny for any footballer yet in the jobs that he's had in management. So he's not really had because he came in at Derby and they had financial problems, obviously, and they were docked all those points. And then even at Washington DC, he had a few loan players, but he's never splashed out any money. And then to Birmingham, obviously, he was there such a short period of time. He didn't even get to the window where he could perhaps have affected things. So I think he's desperate for a chance to get a job where maybe he starts in, gets a pre-season, for example, and signs one or two players that are his own. So you could feel his frustration.
Yeah, I don't know whether you heard the bit where he was on about, Gaz asked him about the overhead kicks at the end of the game, his overhead kick and garnachos. Yeah. And he was on about his when he hit his shin and what have you. He actually, did you hear him say when he said, I give Micah the absolute runaround? Yeah. I don't know whether you saw that or not.
I didn't hear that bit, man. I didn't.
No, I did. I've just made it up. He never said it.
But it was good to see you feature in the show, Micah, as you tried to head it as he overhead kicked into the top corner. Anyway, I think
brilliant.
I enjoyed having Wayne in the studio. Let's get back to Liverpool. I mean, crikey. I mean, it just shows you, doesn't it, the depth they've got in terms of their young talent there. And I saw Jayden Dan's his little post-match interview. I saw it this morning on social media, where he said, the best day of my life. And then, to score 2 goals, and I thought he did really well when he came on in the Carabao Cup final as well, didn't he, against Chelsea? I mean, brilliant. I mean, and Klopp trusts them. I mean, some people say, well, he's not going to take too many chances with these players because they've got so many injuries, but they still, to beat a side that's been going really well in the Championship by 3-0 with basically a youth team is pretty impressive.
You know what the most impressive thing for me is when you win something, we've all won something, and you win the League Cup, you're still a youngster, and to be able to put that aside and then perform at that level, because when you're a young player, and obviously you two are the greats of the game, there's always a moment in your career where you feel like, I can relax now. And it comes at different stages for different players. So they could have easily took their foot off the gas and just thought, right, I've won a League Cup now. I can, if I go get some minutes, if I go get some money in the Championship or whatever, go on loan and everyone knows my name. But to perform like that at Anfield, score in front of the Kop, and it was the delicious dink as well. You've talked about it. We talked about it just the other day, Gaz. The keepers come out. The way they come out, if you just take that little second and lift it, and the way he explained that in his interview as well, it was just brilliant. And I know his dad. And I'd like to see his son doing so well. Yeah. It's just amazing.
You know his dad, do you?
Well, I know him from around Liverpool and whatnot. He had a career himself all around the different leagues. He was Neil Dan's, wasn't it?
Yeah.
His dad. And he said in his interview, his son, basically, that his dad was crying on his debut. So it's just a great moment for the family. And, long may it continue. Come on, keep going.
I was just about to say that, Micah. Can you imagine how, not only the dad, but he's feeling this morning? It's his absolute dream. 2 goals at the Cop End for his club at such a young age.
Then he has to go out and do his homework.
And I listened to his interview as well, and I just thought, wow, isn't that brilliant? It's the best day of my life. It's only going to get better, mate. Honestly, if you stick in there and work at it, then wow.
Yeah, it's interesting that he did that little dink, because as you said, we had that conversation, didn't we? I think the other night. All the goalkeepers now do the same thing. When you one-on-one, if you come out, they all come and they kind of put one leg and they slide the other out and they go low and they try and make themselves big, but they actually, by spreading their legs, they lower themselves. And what you can do on that, when the keeper's coming out and they all do the same thing, you know what they're going to do. You've got 2 options. If you're really close to the goal, you can do the little scoop. And if you're further out from the goal, you go round them. You just drag it, because there's no chance that I can't understand why more strikers are not going around keepers now, because it's so easy to do when you're running at pace and they're coming out and you know exactly what movement the keepers do, because they're obviously all trained to do the same thing now. And strikers need to think about it a little bit more and just drag it onto you. Either way, you can go either way around the keeper or the little scoop. But so many of them try and knock it through the keeper, and they end up hitting the goalkeeper so frequently. I find it exasperating, particularly if it's my team.
Well, sorry, can I just ask you guys? I mean, on that, a lot of strikers told me that I played with to aim for the goalkeeper's legs. Even Joe Hart told me to that. Because we said we can't get down quick enough. So if we come out and spread, aim for between the legs. Did you guys do that or not?
That's only if they're near their line. I think that's at an angle or something like that. If you come in at an angle, from what I'm talking about more is if you directly through on goal and it's straight middle of the goal, whereas you can drag it either way.
Okay.
I think that's more probably, I would say, if you're on an angle, like on the corner of the 6-yard box and the keeper's coming, well, it's really quite hard to, if you're actually hitting it from a range. But so it's slightly different if they're near their line, because then you can't really scoop it so much. But the options there are to hit it high into the net, hard, or actually either go through the legs or try and get it off the far post, but
just weigh up your best options. That's the beauty of the best strikers.
Yeah. And good finishers will work it out really quickly, won't they, Alan?
You analyse it within a second of what the best option to do is. You see Haaland the other night.
Yep.
Yes.
His first two goals, power. I think it was his hat-trick goal,
Scoop,
where he got in there and he just dinked it over again, didn't he? Just weigh it up in that split second, and that's what the best strikers do.
Can Liverpool's young players persist in this? It'd be interesting to see how many of them play, perhaps in their next game.
Well, they might have to, guys, with the injuries.
That's my point. Yeah, whether you can maintain that level, though, it's difficult for young players.
When a lot of the big hitters are back for Liverpool, they'll be back in the team, and the youngsters will be out. But that all depends how long the injuries are going to be. But I think what Jurgen has done is that great belief and the confidence that it'll give those boys. And I mean, if they've gone into the cup final, they've gone into the FA Cup game last night at Anfield, they've not been phased at all. So from now to the end of the season, if he has to use them, I think there's no problem. He'll use them and he'll trust them.
I think that I've heard they're creating a creche at Anfield.
How to invest in your academy, though.
Exactly.
How to invest in your academy.
Yeah, well, that's
exactly.
Absolutely right. Yeah. Chelsea, important win for them. I mean, Leeds took an early lead. Chelsea went ahead, and then Leeds equalised, and it was Conor Gallagher, wasn't it, with a late winner. We had that game on as well in the studio. I had half an eye on it because the draw had come out at 7 o'clock. So interesting to see Leicester. might play. Tough draw for Leicester as well, Alan. I mean, you whine, but difficult Chelsea away. But
yeah, I didn't see a lot of that game, guys, but I spoke to my Chelsea supporter on the way home last night who was at the game, and he said, God knows how we won that game. We didn't play well at all, but I'm not really bothered. We just needed to get through.
That's good.
That was his analysis of it.
Yeah, no, it was kind of end-to-end stuff, but I thought Leeds. I think Leeds are a decent side. I think I fancy it's Leicester and Leeds will probably be the two sides promoted back into the Premier League, and I think they've both got probably Premier League squads. Certainly Leicester. I think the fact that Leicester won the other night, which we'll come to. Well, we can do it now. I mean, it was pretty much a reserve team, but it was a reserve team you looked at and you thought, that's a strong side. Still, they've got some decent players in there, and then one or two players like Pereira came on, Fatawu, who is a real precocious young talent. I don't want to talk him up too much because Leicester have got him on loan, so hopefully they'll just sneak him.
Where's he on loan from, Gaz?
Porto. He's only just turned 19, and I mean the goal that he scored was fabulous. Cut in on his left and bent it in the top corner, and he's got this infectious personality, a young man. And there's a lot of socials of Leicester of him celebrating after every game. He's got like a really lovely personality, and you could. There was a little clip that they showed on Leicester's feed where Maresca comes on at the end, and Fatawu runs up to him and went, "Did you see my goal? Did you see my..." and then the manager goes up to one of the other players and said, "Did you hear him? He's asking me if I saw his goal." I mean, he's got a lovely little personality.
Conor Cody played
he
well,
played
didn't he?
really well as well. Clean sheet of 120 minutes extra time. So so that's what happens. You come on the pod, you're back in the team, all goes well. There's something about the FA Cup, though, isn't there, with your teams playing and cup competitions. It's special. It's funny. We've got to the latter stage of the competition. I know most of the championship sides did play kind of second string, weakened sides. Not all of them, but I think that's probably down to the fact they do play 46 league games a season.
I get it a little bit more for the teams that are actually in the position that Leicester are in and Leeds are in, because the pull of the Premier League, the might of the Premier League for them to get up, that's where they want to be. So I get it more for the teams that are doing that than
I was actually disappointed Leicester did it in a way, because I think they sometimes, I know they're trying to keep players fresh and fit, but after had two difficult results, Leicester, that they'd lost, particularly the disappointment, the Leeds one, even though they played really well against Leeds and were unlucky, obviously, with the decision. But then you think, crikey, if he ends up 3 games on the bounce without winning, suddenly there's a little bit of a crisis. But in the ideal scenario was what happened. You play a weakened team and they still win. But so they got away with that. But we know we're old school. We played. You'd want to play every Wednesday, every Saturday, every week. You wouldn't want to miss an FA Cup 5th round tie, would you?
Well, from my point of view personally, then I wasn't interested in training. Just let me play the matches, all of the matches, if I was fit.
Exactly the same.
Why has it lost its prestige a little bit?
I don't think it's lost its prestige.
Do you just think it's games?
Well, it's just, you've got to remember when I was growing up and Alan was growing up. And even Wayne Rooney said it. It was the biggest circus in town, the FA Cup. When I grew up, you didn't dream of winning the First Division title or Premier League, as you call it now. You dreamed of winning the FA Cup or the World Cup. But club football, it was the FA Cup. It was the big thing. It was the only game you'd really see live every season on television. It was massive. So it's never going to have its stature that it had before, but it's still hugely important. And can absolutely make your season if you're successful.
Could we change it a little bit in the early rounds and not have replays and go straight to penalties?
I mean, I always get lambasted for this because I've thought that for a while. But now they have replays in the first 2 rounds, which is, and they say, well, it's a chance for the smaller clubs to get some revenue, blah blah blah. I think that they could work a way around that the clubs get the club in the lower division gets all the revenue for the game. I don't think that'd be too difficult to do. I definitely think that extra time should go generally in all rounds, because occasionally you'll get a good extra time, but mostly players are tired, so they don't want to make mistakes. And to be honest, I think the vast majority of us, when we're watching on television or even when we're at the game, if you're a neutral, you just think, oh, God, I really want it to stay like level now. So you don't want anyone to win it in that time, because penalty shootouts are great. They're really entertaining. But so I think
Agreed.
I think we'll gradually shift in there. But I think extra time is pointless. It was a testy one, wasn't it? A really nervy evening for certain Alan Shearer. At Blackburn, we were all there, and there were times you were getting a little bit frustrated, Alan, but you found a way through in the end, albeit on penalties.
Oh God, it wasn't a great performance. Got the goalkeeper to thank, Dubravka, who was Newcastle's man of the match. He made some wonderful saves, and of course made 2 good saves in the penalty shootout as well to get through with the very last one. But again, very much like Manchester United, with the season that they're having. I mean, I think they're 10th in the Premier League now, Newcastle. So to win that cup tie the other night and keep the season going was hugely important for the club, and of course for Eddie, because he was under a little bit of pressure as well. Much the same. Not really bothered, just had to get through, and they did that by hook or by crook, mainly by good goalkeeping. And they're into the next round, but they've got a bloody hard tie.
They really have. It's the one everybody wanted to avoid, and the 4 balls that were left in the pot at the end, weren't they? It's Leicester, Chelsea, Man City, and Newcastle. And I was thinking, no, not City, not City, not City.
Are you confident now?
I know. Extremely.
But you never know. Stranger things have happened.
Our name, Newcastle's name, is on the cup this year, the FA Cup.
We said that the other night, we thought. And I actually said I've got a feeling Newcastle will do it this year, but I've changed my mind now.
Big shout out to Blackburn as well, though. They were brilliant.
I thought they had a real go, didn't they?
John Eustace and his boys made it really difficult for Newcastle, created some really good chances. And if they play like that, Blackburn, for the rest of the season, then they'll be okay.
Schmodix was good, wasn't he? I mean, number 10, number 9, number 8, he sort of variety of different positions. Really impressed me. Just the chances he got, he created, the passing. A couple of his finishes could have probably had a little bit more composure. We spoke about that on the night, but he's getting in there. And as in a season, what is it? 24 goals, was it out this season? 23, 24 goals?
Yeah.
24 goals,
24 goals. I mean, he's having a stormer. And he's definitely one to watch.
I thought both goalkeepers played well. Pears as well at the other end.
Yeah, absolutely agreed. Yeah, he made a couple of good saves as well, didn't he? Yeah.
So Manchester City come next. They didn't have too many problems at Luton, didn't? Oh, he's got his arms up in the air, Micah.
The best team in the land and all the woo.
Erling Haaland, 5 goals in 55 minutes. I mean, what's going on?
What's everyone talking about? He's having a drought, isn't he? What's happening? He's not the same. He's not. He's just come back from injury. Just let him get up to speed.
Honestly, Mike, having had a career as a striker and a goal scorer, and I'm sure Alan's the same, you used to get it all the time. You go 2 games without a goal, and suddenly people saying, "Oh, he's not what he was," and you just think, "Well, hang on a minute. It's like a week, 2 weeks ago I was scoring." Honestly, you're either brilliant or you're hopeless as a striker, and it never used to bother me because you just get on with it. But I used to think it was absolutely ridiculous. It used to make me chuckle. You go 2 or 3 games without a goal, and it was like, you were hopeless, and actually you were always a flash in the pan and all this kind of nonsense. You get used to that, don't you, Alan, as a striker?
Yeah, you do. That's why it's so important not to believe all that crap and just believe that it'll come. And more often than not, it does. You have belief in your own ability. And it is, you're right. When you've been out with an injury, there's always people, oh, he's not quite the same, or he's this, or he's that. But you always get the opportunity to respond on the pitch.
You don't think that annoys me about it so much is, regardless of if he's playing at his top level or not, he's going to score 20 to 25 goals a season anyway, just from his movement, because City creates so many chances. And Al, you actually said that, didn't you? Before, when City was winning league without a number 9, you said actually, once they get a number 9, he's going to score 30 or 40 goals just because he'll be in the right positions. And yes, some of his link-up play is not as elegant as, say, a Harry Kane, but he's in a team that are always creating chances. So it's, irrelevant about that side when you've got Foden and De Bruyne behind you. He's always going to score goals.
4 assists for De Bruyne. His first 4 goals, Haaland scores. De Bruyne assists.
How many times are we going to say it? Dreamland.
It's ridiculous.
As a forward for playing in the same team as him. Dreamland.
It's ridiculous. Some of the passes he's doing, though, is ridiculous. The positions he takes up, normally that number 8, number 10 role, sort of come from passes just from the central, but he can do it from either wing, centrally, quarterback. We've talked about him playing so deep as well. He's phenomenal. It really is.
It's a better midfield forward partnership than De Bruyne Haaland.
That'd be yeah.
No, there's not.
No. Gerrard Suarez was pretty good. You could go maybe Kane and Son, although Son's more of a forward.
Yeah, more of a forward, isn't he? So
De Bruyne's on a different planet, man. He's just outrageously good.
You love to,
for a forward. When you just, as we've said it, when he gets it, move, you're off. He's going to find you. I mean, his tap-in, the tap-in the other night when he gave him the tap-in. I mean, so many other people would have chose to have a shot there and score themselves, but he just said, there you go, have another one, put it on a plate for you. It's just brilliant.
We ought to mention Wolves because John, producer John, would be upset if we don't. But he did say in the break, he went, I wouldn't bother talking too much about Wolves Brighton. It was absolutely shit.
And didn't he score after the first couple of minutes? I think they went 1-0 up, and then
there was a goal after 2 minutes, so he thought it was going to be a good game, wasn't it? And then
again, though, big shout to Gary O'Neill.
Yeah.
My God, what a job he's doing! Unbelievable, flying in the league, quarterfinals of the FA Cup, brilliant job.
I mean, you know what it's like with coaching and managers. You start eulogising about someone and then they lose 4 games on the trot and they're out their job. So you need to always be a little bit wary. But, he really seems to know when you listen to him, he knows what he's talking about. You can see that the players have bought into what he does. He plays, he's aggressive, attacking, pressing football. We've struggled to find great England coaches. And, we can see that in Premier League history. There's not been an English coach that has won one yet. So, maybe he'll be that special coach. I don't want to build him up too much because there's what we said before, but you never know.
It's hard though, isn't it, guys? I mean, we thought that about Potter. It's all depends, and no disrespect to Wolves fans, what his next move is. Has he got the control of getting in the players? Do they buy into the style of football that he wants to play? And then can he do it at a team with more pressure? Because ultimately, when we talk about the likes of Anthony and Martial and Pogba not doing it at Man United, a lot of it is to do with the scrutiny of the club, and it's just whether he can deal with the outside noise along with getting the players to buy into what he's doing. I think that's the next challenge for him.
Micah, you just mentioned the name Paul Pogba there. And honestly, actually, this very second, the breaking news is that Paul Pogba is, I'm just going to read this, has been banned from football for 4 years due to doping. I mean, he's 30 years old now. And he's under contract with Juventus, not allowed to play professional football again until 2028.
He was under contract with Juventus.
Yeah. I mean,
it's devastating that though, isn't it? we don't know the full details.
Well, I think it was testosterone, wasn't it? I think, which is obviously performance enhancing.
It is such a sad story. I mean, there's many times where I've been covering the games, and because I played against him when he was at Juventus, and I've seen his ability. Obviously, come through the Man United academy, he was one of the best players, along with Ravel Morrison, and then he goes and wins the World Cup with France, and we're expecting him to be one of the great midfielders, and it's just not happened. Then you get this news about him getting banned. It's just horrific.
I wonder a little bit generally. I've always had a slight fear in recent years about possible, performance-enhancing drugs within football. A lot of players now playing a lot longer than they used to, and I know things have improved in terms of the medical situations and stuff. But it's in most other sports, and when you consider that the amount of money involved in football, if you can, perform a little bit better, the vast sums that you could get, the temptations must be there. I suspect that Pogba's not the only player to do this, but it is a worry. About. I think it is for all sports.
Why would you though? Come on, I mean, Jesus. I don't get it. I don't understand it. And he's been found guilty, so he's got to take his punishment.
But the thing is, though, I've not read up all the details. Obviously, you've just announced it now, guys. But it's even worse if someone knew it was. If he's gone out and do it by himself, he has to take responsibility. But if there was someone, a doctor, a physio, whoever it may be, involved in that, it brings the game into dispute, doesn't it? It's shocking.
Yeah, it is shocking. There have been issues around, football, and you've heard rumours with Italian football for a long time, and possibly sometimes Spanish football. They had issues there with Real Madrid doctor a number of years ago. Nothing came to fruition particularly, but there has been the odd case here and there. But yeah, it's a question for the sport and a worry for the sport. It's whether they do more doping now, more testing. To try and keep it as clean as you possibly can, but I think it's a dilemma that all sports has. Let's finish this episode, which is obviously that story was just breaking, so we thought we'd talk about it. But I want to mention it, Maidstone. They've had a great run. Obviously, they got a good hiding from Coventry, and Ellis Sims scoring a hat trick. But it was what I felt was a big pity was that they didn't with all due respect to Coventry, that they didn't draw a Manchester United or a Liverpool or even one of the big boys.
Yeah, but it didn't. I mean, I watched that the other night. It didn't dampen their spirits. No. I mean, the support they got off their fans at the end. I mean, they've been smacked all evening, really. But the support that they had and the reception that they gave the fans back in terms of they've had a great run. They've made it. They've made a right few quid for their football club, which should stand them in good stead going forward. So it's been a great success for them this season, and hopefully they can build on it from now until whenever.
Great story, isn't it?
Yeah,
great for all the players, the fans, and that's why we love the FA Cup so much.
Yeah, it does. It gives you the underdog that little chance. Who's going to win the FA Cup then? Man United versus Liverpool, Man City versus Newcastle, Chelsea, Leicester, Wolves, Coventry.
Toon Army!
Shut up!
I agree, it's going to be City, Micah, and that is Leicester City. So that's it for this episode of The Rest is Football. Hope you enjoyed it, and we'll be back after the weekend. Goodbye from me.
Goodbye from me.
Goodbye from me. Have a good weekend.